welcome to episode 20 of the Purpose Driven Funnels Show. Today I'm going to talk about the purpose of work from a biblical perspective and kind of tell you what the Bible says about it, and I'm also going to give you 5 reasons why we work. It's a really interesting study and some things that I came across here recently that I wanted to share with you. Also, I'm going to give you an update on the business that I've been working on and trying to get out of my 9-to-5 and give you some really good, interesting updates about that. So I hope you enjoy today's show. I'm embarking on a journey to grow a successful online business so I can break free from my 9-to-5. The question is, how will I do it? Find out right here on the Purpose Driven Funnels Show, where you will get an insider's view as I interview experts who have succeeded. I'm doing it because my why is bigger than my 9-to-5. Life is meant to be a joy and not a chore. Will you join me? Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/purpose-driven-funnels. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So today I'm going to talk about God's purpose for work and what it really is. I'm going to give you 5 reasons for work that come from the Bible. So I think you guys are going to find this really interesting. Some things that I came across here recently and also did some deep study on before. So to kind of get started, basically the beginning of it is just need to establish that we were meant to work since the beginning of creation as outlined in Genesis from the very beginning. And yeah, that was prior to the fall of mankind into sin. Like God said, be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. So we were clearly meant to work since the beginning. We weren't meant to, be put on this earth into this awesome garden that God made and just sit around, do nothing all day except, enjoy it all. And that really was not the purpose, as maybe a lot of people like to maybe think or even believe. I have to admit, I've gone down that thought process before thinking, heaven, must be just sitting around doing nothing all day and enjoying myself. But that's not what God ordained from the very beginning. So that's the first part that we need to establish, is that we were meant to work. So whether we're working for, somebody else, or whether we're working for ourselves, or whether we're creating passive income, it all takes some level of work. But the idea here is not to sit around and let other people do the work for us, so to speak. So God did clearly say in the 10 Commandments that He gave to us through Moses that we were to work for 6 days and rest on the 7th day, which was the Sabbath day, or Shabbat as the Hebrew language calls it. And so basically, they had 1 day of rest, and the other 6 days God calls us to create, to dominate the environment, while also, of course, caring for it, and also to find His purpose in doing that. So, our purpose in our work should line up with that. Create, dominate the environment, but care for it and find God's purpose in doing this work. So with that being said, I do want to talk just for a minute about that 7th day of rest. In our culture today, especially in corporate America, but even in, just American culture generally, the Western culture is to work hard, work all the time, work day and night, in order to be successful. But the Bible clearly makes that a case against that. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people are missing, and why people are so burnt out and so tired and so stressed out, is because we're not resting that 1 day every week. I really think it's divinely ordained by God, the way we were made, the way we were created, that we need that one day of rest. Even God rested after 6 days of work. And that's the reason that he also requires us to also rest. It's not a request. Actually, it was in the 10 Commandments. It's a commandment. It's something that he says, do this. So when we don't do that, then we get away from the blessings that God has for us in doing our work. So with that being said, I'm going to dive right into the 5 reasons from the Bible of why we work. So reason number 1 that we work is we work for fulfillment and dignity. Ecclesiastes 2:24 says, "There is nothing better for a man than to eat and drink and tell himself that his labor is good. This I have also seen is from the hand of God." So here we clearly see that work is supposed to be fulfilling to us. We're supposed to enjoy the outcomes of our work, and that is something that God gives us to enjoy. So reason number 2 is we worked to provide food for ourselves and not to be a burden to others. So God clearly told us to work, as we outlined first in the very beginning, in Genesis. Before the fall, God said to multiply, subdue the earth. And then we see this again in Genesis 3, even after the fall, where it reiterates again that we are supposed to work. However, this time the work is going to be much harder. It just says in Genesis 3:19, "By the sweat of your face you will eat bread." And also the Apostle Paul, he taught that nobody should eat if they don't work. We can see 2 Thessalonians 3:10 for an example of that. And he also set an example for new believers, and that Paul, when he visited churches that he actually planted, he did not allow himself to be a burden for others. In fact, he had an occupation. He was a tent maker. So he made sure that he had work that he could do in order to provide for himself so that he wasn't going to be a burden to other people. 1 Thessalonians 2:9 says, "For you recall, brethren, our labor and hardship, how working night and day so as not to be a burden to any of you, we proclaim to you the gospel of God." And also 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, "Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life and attend to your own business and work with your hands, just as we commanded you, so that you will behave properly towards outsiders and not be in any need." Then 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." So the Bible makes it pretty clear that we should work to provide food for ourselves, and also we should work so that we are not a burden to other people. We don't want that to get in the way of any of the things that we do, like sharing the gospel, for example. So I could say a whole lot about that right now, but that takes me into a whole other episode that I'm not really going to get into right now. So let's move on to reason number 3 that we work, which is for profit. This one sounds really good. I like this one. But basically, working for profit allows us to be able to supply for ourselves, for our own needs, and also to be able to have an abundance so that we can give to charities, give to other people who, for example, can't work, like elderly people, like, the widows, and even orphans, so that we can make sure that they're taken care of. And Proverbs 14:23 says, "In all labor there is profit." In other words, advantage or abundance. But mere talk leads only to poverty. So clearly it says, hey, let's work, not talk, because work is what brings profit, which brings abundance, which brings advantage to us. So reason number 4, we work to avoid idleness by working in any capacity. Even if we're like a volunteer or a trainee, we're clearly avoiding idleness, which is just sitting around, like I was talking about before, doing nothing and enjoying, the good fruits of the life that God put here for us, like, the Garden of Eden and, the idea that we weren't supposed to work. That's clearly not the case. But, that lifestyle is pretty harshly condemned throughout Scripture. So even, for example, when King Solomon in Proverbs wrote, "How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." So that's Proverbs 6, verses 9 through 11. Reason number 5, we are to work to be God's priests, ambassadors, and messengers. And no job is too trivial that it cannot glorify God. Everything can glorify God, the work that we do. Yes, that means even our 9 to 5. And yes, of course, that also means the business that we're working for in order to get out of our 9 to 5. Clearly, the Bible doesn't say, work means you have to work for other people. We have the option to choose that if we want. If we want to enslave ourselves to some other person working for a company, we have the option to do that. And we can glorify God doing that, but we don't necessarily have to. That's what I like about, work in the Bible. It's pretty clear to me that a lot of people have their own businesses in the Bible, and I don't have any different thoughts than that. I mean, that's my desire and always has been, as you guys know if you've been listening to the show. But our job really is to be, lights in the world, in the workplace, or in the marketplace that we're in, which obviously needs the light, of godly men and women in it. So 2 Corinthians 5:20 says, "Therefore we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were making an appeal through us. We beg you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God." Also, to back this up, 1 Corinthians 3:9, "For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building." So in other words, we work for God, right? And also, we look at 1 Peter 2:9, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." So it's pretty clear by these verses that we're supposed to be lights to the world, right? But the question now is, how? How are we supposed to be a light in the world, especially if you're in a 9 to 5 job and you hate it, right? I mean, that's something to consider. But through this study of Scripture, we learn what God's standards for working are, for working with others, such as leaders, or if we have subordinates, people that report to us, or other buyers and sellers that we might work with in the marketplace. And there are 3 things, which first one is we are to be honest, where, a lot of people in the marketplace aren't honest. We're called to be honest. Second thing is we're called to be hard workers, where there's a lot of people out in the workplace that, are just trying to do what they can to get by in their jobs. So it's, is not very fulfilling either, but we're called to be hard workers. And the third one, probably more importantly here, is that we are to show God's mercy and love. A lot of people in the workplace or the marketplace, they haven't experienced that in their lives. So those are 3 things that we can do to be lights to the world. So by setting God's standards as our own standards, then we set an example of being a child in God's kingdom, which is really who we work for anyway. So perhaps God will even He might even give us supernatural wisdom. He might give us supernatural knowledge to solve problems that nobody else can solve. And we can see that by looking at 1 Corinthians 12:8, which talks about getting words of wisdom and knowledge as one of the gifts of the Spirit. So definitely check that out. So our calling is to be loyal ambassadors, to trust God, to see us through it all. And King Solomon again in Ecclesiastes 3:22 says, "In the end I saw that there is nothing better for a person than to enjoy their work, because that is their lot in life." And then again in Ecclesiastes 5:19, "And to work is a gift from God." So clearly work was designed by God. We were designed to follow God's design, that He worked 6 days, rested 1 day. So we work for 6 days only. And then we enjoy it. I mean, in the Bible, when God was creating the world, every time He created something, He said, that's good. I like that. He saw that it was good. And then that was the end of the creation. So we are to enjoy our work, and we are to have purpose in it that God gives us, to be out there in the world and be a light for everybody. And, one thing I want to point out, I think there was Colossians chapter 3, verse 22. That scripture really used to give me, just a lot of trouble because of what it says. And I'll read it here for you real quick. This is going to be from, the New American Standard Bible, as all the verses I've been reading have been from. But this says, "Slaves, in all things obey those who are your masters on earth, not with external service as those who merely please men, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord." Now, I actually wrote an article about about this in particular, about the study of work, and how this verse and some others really used to condemn me about having my own business. I always felt like that verse was talking to me, saying, you're a slave, which, working for somebody else, you're masters on earth, right? Working for another company, and basically you're a slave. If you work for somebody else, you got to do what they say. They're your masters of the work that you do, right? If you don't do what they say, they'll fire you, or they won't give you a raise, or whatever. Clearly we're their slaves. And this used to condemn me in a way that it felt like it was saying, you know what, just shut up and enjoy your work. I don't understand how I was supposed to enjoy my work. When I'm reading scripture that says to obey my masters, right, and work hard for them, as if, I'm working for the Lord, basically. And for years I struggled with that. Like, I just felt like, maybe it's not my calling, or maybe it's not for me, or maybe it's not for Christians that we are supposed to have our own business or do our own thing or enjoy our work, but we're just supposed to suck it up and, work for other people. But then I come across Ecclesiastes, which is actually my favorite book in the Bible. I started reading it and reading some of these verses we talked about today, where it says God meant for work to be pleasurable, and that He gave us, the ability to choose what we want to do. So if you want to go into a deep dive on an article I wrote about that on work and purpose, I'll put a link in the show notes on the blog that I posted that on. And it's a really fascinating study that I think that if you've ever been condemned about, feeling like you have to work for other people and like you can't have your own business, you've got to read that article. It's only about a 9-minute read if you go over there and check it out. So I'll make sure and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So that concludes the 5 reasons for work and the purpose in our work. But now, as I told you guys, I just want to give you a quick update on where I stand in my business right now. So, as you guys know, I've been working really hard on some new projects that I'm trying to launch for, to really just get my business off the ground. I've actually been successfully working with a couple of clients now, and I'm getting ready to have another one come on board with me. So, things are really looking up. I'm actually making money now. I'm going to have a really good month this month. So I'm really finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel after, more than a year of, trying to get this thing going and do that so that I can get out of my 9 to 5. And I really, just recently, I want to tell you guys that I think I did something that really changed the pace of what I'm doing. And we talked a little bit about it in earlier episodes. I think with Kim Maya, we talked about the one thing and all that stuff. So one thing I actually did, though, was I set a really strict guideline or deadline for when I needed to get out of my job. Like, I felt like saying, like, okay, in my head, if in this amount of time frame I don't have my business going, I'm going to lose my job. I was just like, in my head, I'm going to lose my job, right? And I've got to have income. So I set a 90-day window, not to have a business running, but to have it running and have income coming in. So I'm about, I'm not halfway through it yet. I've gotten through, I'm like day 70, maybe the upper 60s right now. I can't remember. I've been kind of checking them off most every day, but I'm on vacation right now, so I haven't looked at the calendar for a couple days. But so, I've worked less than 20 days so far towards getting my business going to the point that I can replace my job. So I gave myself 90 days to do that. And I can tell you guys that when you do that, if you really sincerely just think in your mind, like, if I don't have this by then, I'm a goner. Like, I'm not going to make it because I'm going to get fired. So that's been my mindset. And I'm going to tell you, I'm working really hard. It's really helping me figure out, okay, what's the one thing I need to work on right now, tonight, that I have to get done. And sometimes those projects are hours longer than the actual time I have. So I have to say, okay, for 1 hour, what do I need to do of that big project? And set a timer and work for 1 hour. And then take care of my clients and other things that I'm currently working on. Because, I've got current clients coming in and doing that, but I'm also launching something bigger that I believe will actually help me quit my job a lot faster. And it's pretty interesting because it actually pertains to my profession in HR. And I think that was like the game changer when the thought came to me, when the idea came. I'm like, wow, okay. Number one, I found something out in the marketplace that people need. We talked about that with Bob in the last episode. What do you need? The 3 things to do to figure out, what you should do. So I found a need in the marketplace in the HR world. And I'm like, wow, HR needs this, and I have the skills to do it. And those are 2 out of the 3 that, I've been doing HR for the last 10 years. So I can definitely do this. It's not something that's that's impossible or anything by any means. It's definitely something I've done a lot. I've got a lot of experience in. So, but the third one Bob said was, be passionate about it or like it. And well, I can't honestly say I love HR. It's my job. I like some of it and some of it I don't. This particular part of HR I don't really like. But I will tell you, I do like the idea of working for myself. I'd rather work for myself in HR, doing that kind of stuff, than I would other people in HR. And I'm not talking about being a consultant either. I'm actually talking about taking the skills I've learned, the digital marketing, and being able to, run ads for people and stuff like that on Facebook and Google, and use that in a way in HR that's not really being used very successfully right now. So I found a really cool niche that companies are willing to pay pretty high dollar for. Because if you guys remember, I was shooting for a $2,000 per month uh, cost, or ticket for charging my clients. And this particular service that I have easily hits $2,000. So I'm pretty excited. Like, if I can get this thing running and get some clients coming in, then I firmly believe I am just on the cusp of being able to quit my 9 to 5 job. So just want to give you guys an update on that, and also a quick update too, because I told you guys, a few episodes ago, I've been working on something hard for you guys that's going to help you. If you want to do any kind of consultant work or anything for people, I've got an actual funnel that was created. That is kind of like that application funnel that Steve and I were talking about on my coaching call. So I've been working on that for my business as well, and it's almost complete. And what I want to do is, when that's complete, I want to share that with you guys so that you don't have to worry about building that funnel for yourself. You can just put your own text or your own services in it, and fill it out with your own copy, your own text, slap a couple of your own images in it, and go to town, put some ads to your funnel, and start getting hot leads in for your business. So be sure to go to my website, purposedrivenfunnels.com, and get on the email list, because that's where I'm going to put out the information when it's complete and available for you guys, because I don't want you guys to have to go through all the hard work that I had to go through in order to create this funnel. I want something that's done for you that will speed up the process for you, so that hopefully you won't take over a year to get where I'm at right now. You guys really, on the episodes we've been doing, there's a lot of great info on here already, and of course I'm planning on trying to get even more. But there's already enough right here for you guys to get started, like how to choose what to do, different avenues you can go down with social media and ads, and how to grow your business, and even specifically, what kind of funnels to set up for, consulting, like businesses and stuff like that, we're service-based businesses. So I want to give you guys that funnel that is used to get clients and get red hot lead clients into your business. So once you get it figured out what you want to do, and you've got the skills, you've got the interest, you've got a market need, so all you need is slap a funnel in there, and you guys are off to the races. And I'll be happy to help you guys get started. So if you want to grab that funnel, get on my email list. I'll email you guys when it's ready. It's just putting the final finishing touches on it right now, so it'll make it easy for you guys to understand how to use it. But shoot a reply to my email and get on my list and say, hey, if you want some help, I'd be happy to talk to you. I'd be happy to help you figure out what you should do, because I went through a lot of that. I know a lot of the things that I did that caused me to slow that process down a lot. But I want a shortcut for you guys, so I don't want you guys getting stuck on what should I do. That just pick something and go for it. So if you want to reach out to me, you can even reach out to me on Facebook. I'll be happy to talk to you. But jump on my email list so you know what's going on. Get that free funnel, and we'll get your business rolling too. So I'm really looking forward and hoping that here in the next few episodes, as I go through my 90-day challenge to get myself out of my job, I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to say that I've been successful. So I will talk to you guys in another episode update here pretty soon. I'm working hard on getting you some more good interviews, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. I really hope you found it valuable. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you would share it with somebody that you think might also find it valuable. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show so you don't miss anything coming up in the future.
Also, if you haven't already done so, be sure to hop on over to purposedrivenfunnels.com and get on my email newsletter over there so that I can share some, secret insights that only people on that email newsletter are going to get. And I'm really working on some big projects and things that I'm going to be putting out there for free that are really going to help you guys start your business and get it off to a start even faster than what I did. So get on over there and get signed up for that, and I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, I'm wishing you success on your purpose-driven business journey. God bless.